Welcome in, everybody. That was terrible. Welcome in, everybody, to the Friday AMA Week 9 edition. Week 9 already. We are like halfway through the entire NFL regular season, essentially. A little over halfway for the fantasy season. So we are moving quickly. It's already November 1st. So time flies, man. Time flies. Welcome in, everybody, to the Friday AMA. People have already been in the chat. People are waiting. Jamie, what's up, everyone? Hit that like button. Mustangs in here. Happy Friday to all. Toronto Dave in the chat as always. Trax, been waiting for this all week. welcome in, everybody. All right, let's just get things going, because if I don't start now, we're gonna go until like 2:45, which is completely possible. But anyway, Trax, should I sell Mark Andrews, or do you think that he's going to keep performing like this the rest of the season? Because Deontay scares me for the Ravens because more target shares. Yeah, so I think the addition of Deontay hurts everybody. It's bad for Zay Flowers. It's probably bad for Mark Andrews. It's not bad for Derrick Henry. It's not bad for Lamar Jackson, most especially. I don't think this is necessarily bad for Mark Andrews. I mean, his production right now is not target based. It is touchdown based. So if he continues to be a red zone threat, then I think that is, still going to be a good thing for Mark Andrews. The only other part that I would add to this would be, I don't know if you can sell Mark Andrews. People, have already written him off as being completely dead based on how he started out the year for the first 4, 5, 6 weeks. The last couple of weeks have been really good because, like I said, of touchdowns. But on Keep Trade Cut, he is the tight end 13, which he's one spot behind Evan Ingram, 2 spots behind Jake Ferguson. If you can sell for either one of those two guys, then sure, I would sell Mark Andrews for Evan Ingram straight up, or Mark Andrews for Jake Ferguson straight up. He's 1 spot ahead of Travis Kelce. Don't know if I would do that one. I don't think I would sell him for Cole Kmet or Pat Freiermuth or Dallas Goedert. I'd sell him for Otten or Njoku. Those guys are just ahead of Jake Ferguson too, but you're probably going to have to add to Andrews to get to them. You'll probably have to add to Andrews to get to Ferguson or Ingram too. I don't know. I feel like Andrews right now is a hold for multiple reasons, which is basically just you can't get anything for him. I think that of the people that got most hurt by the Deontay Johnson acquisition, it's Zay Flowers, not Mark Andrews as much. And Deontay's going to take some time to get integrated in the offense too. So it might, for the next week or two, Andrews might still be completely fine because Deontay isn't playing a bunch of snaps, is not all that effective because he doesn't know the offense as well. And who knows, by the end of the year, Deontay Johnson's a free agent at the end of the year. Mark Andrews could just be fine next year if they don't re-sign Deontay. So I'm completely fine holding on to Mark Andrews and not really trying to sell off of him, just because I don't really think that you can sell off of him at this point. Sorry, I just had to send somebody a message back for work. All right. Vince, this content helps me finish the work week strong. 2 trade questions. I appreciate you, man. First one, nice and simple. Competing team, 12 teams, start 11 Superflex. Send Jaden Reed for Jonathan Taylor. Ooh. Hey, you said nice and simple, but that doesn't feel nice and simple. I think this is fine on both ends. I think in general, I would lean toward Jaden Reed, but if you have other good wide receivers and you want to move over to Jonathan Taylor, I like that. I don't think that this is bad value on either side. So if you want to move over for JT, totally fine. I don't know what your roster looks like, but the only other thing would be like, if you're just making this move to get like depth at running back and you already have like Bijan or Gibbs and you have somebody else and blah, blah, blah. Like if JT doesn't feel like you need a running back, then maybe I would just keep Reed, but I like it. The value is fine. I'll take JT if you need a running back. Second trade, different league, 12 teams, Superflex start 9. Send Zay Flowers, Njoku, and Troy Franklin. Get Odunze and Montgomery. Appreciate it. Have a great weekend. Thanks, man. Camera. This one I would do. I hate moving off of David Njoku just because I think he's going to have a really strong end of the season. But but I do think Kyle Pitts is more valuable from a dynasty standpoint. I would rather have Rome Odunze than Zay Flowers. And so, yeah, again, if you need another running back and it's David Njoku, you have to move Njoku to go get Montgomery, who I think is a top 15, if not even a top 12 guy for the rest of the year, just because of how good that offense is. The touchdown equity that he has every week is immaculate. And then adding Troy Franklin. I love Troy Franklin, and he's shown flashes here and there over the past couple of weeks, but as of right now, he's a fine fill-in that I'm willing to move off of to get a deal done. So yeah, I'll take Roman and Monty in this one too. Philip, on a rebuilding 12-team Superflex PPR 0.5 tight end premium, start 10. Trade away Jonathan Brooks for a playoff 25 first and Najee Harris. I don't know, man. I feel like I would have probably rather have held on to Jonathan Brooks still. I mean, I think value-wise, you won. I think Brooks is pretty much equivalent around-ish to a 25 first, or maybe it's a 25 first and a late 25 second at most, which I do think Najee is worth more than a late 25 second, but how much more? You're rebuilding, so it's nice to get the first, but at the same time, I feel like Brooks could have just exploded even more. And now you have Najee. I'd like to move off of Najee if you're rebuilding. I don't want his points for the remainder of the year. He's going to be 26 or something next year. So I don't know. I just don't know if Najee was the right play. I don't know if trading away Jonathan Brooks was the right play. I think it's fine value-wise, but I feel like I probably wouldn't have done it. But again, completely fine on the value standpoint. Trade away JSN in a 25 first for Trey McBride. JSN is untradeable in my league, and that's the only manager that might be interested. I'm extra tight end premium. I don't mind trading away McBride or trading away JSN for McBride. Adding the first. You already have Bowers, though. That's kind of like that's the weird part here. I don't think I would add a first to JSN to go get McBride, who's just going to replace JSN in your flex spot. And that might be better for you from a starting lineup standpoint, probably on a points per game basis. But I just don't know if that first is the only other thing is what the difference is between the two, just to upgrade your flex spot a year from now when you're ready to compete. I also like you said you're saying that you feel like this is your only out on JSN. If that's the case, I would just hold on to JSN. I mean, if Tyler Lockett does move on next year or does get traded by the trade deadline this year to Pittsburgh, but there are still things that could happen positively for JSN that could increase his value. And if you're a rebuilding team, like you're saying, those are the players that you probably have to hold on to, and you don't necessarily need to move off of those guys right now. So I would probably just hold on to JSN. I would hold on to the first for now, especially because you already have Brock Bowers. You're just going to play McBride in the flex. So I don't know. I don't really see the positive on this one. And then as for this one, I would take Chris Godwin if you're rebuilding. I think Godwin has a better chance to regain a bunch of value than Najee does right now. And you're going to move off of the points from Najee too, assuming you still have your first. Theo, DJ Moore or Terry McLaurin as a dynasty contender? I think I would rather have Terry McLaurin at this point, just given the production that he's been having with his rookie quarterback over DJ Moore's production with Caleb. Of course, I would venture to guess that the Commanders add a wide receiver next year, but then you're just kind of McLaurin would then be in the DJ Moore situation where they added Rome Odunze and Keenan Allen. I don't know if they go out and they add both. It's possible. But if you're just looking for the rest of the year, I feel like I'd rather have Terry McLaurin and then deal with the dynasty consequences after that. Benjamin, what's up, man? JT trade fell through because the owner got cold feet about sending DJ Moore away, of course. I feel like that's happened a lot to a lot of people that I've been talking to, that people are set on deals and then they were like, yep, nope, never mind. Send away Addison and ETN for 25 and 26 picks. Addison are the 201. Both in a 27 second for a 25 and 26. I would rather do that. I'd rather get the 2 first. If I have to add a 27 second, I'd rather do that. Give me And I would do that. So give me the 2 firsts over Addison, ETN, and the second. And again, still in love with the plan that you're working out here. Because you're still building for the future. You're kind of letting your roster just play out, see what happens. Hey, maybe you end up winning a champion. I've been a 6 seed that has won a championship. Jarrett McKinnon, thank you, 2022. But it's possible any given week once you get into the playoffs. So this is what I'm talking about, where if you're this middle of the pack team and you can make moves for the future, but still potentially try to see if you can compete this year, that it's a win-win on both regards. So I love the plan that you have going forward by trying to do both things at the same time. Seth, happy Friday. I have a few questions if you don't mind. Would you move off Chuba for JK or Pollard, or are those two lateral? Chuba, I would trade him for JK. I don't think I would for Pollard, just because there's a little bit more age coming in with Pollard than JK Dobbins. And I think Dobbins has more longevity because of that age, even with the injury history that he's had. So I would take JK over Chuba Hubbard because Chuba has Jonathan Brooks coming in. JK, as of right now, feels like the RB1 for LA for the next year. I don't know about 2026, but I feel like he's in there for 2025. And then you have a contending roster with Aaron Jones and Mike Evans. Would you move off of them while you can for younger production, or ride them and hope to win it all? Who would provide younger value? Yeah, that is the main question, is who would you be able to trade for that is worth it to age down? For Evans, it could be interesting. Could you trade away Mike Evans for Michael Pittman? That might be an interesting one, just because Pittman is going to get Joe Flacco for the remainder of the year. So that passing offense should be elevated. You get 4 years back in age and might not lose all that much production. I mean, you'll get Pittman for the next 2-3 weeks that Evans is out too. So that's nice. In the same regard, Josh Downs is kind of similarly valued too. I feel like it might be harder to get Downs than Pittman though. But if you can move Evans for Downs, that'd be phenomenal. After that, I don't really know if anybody down in here is worth kind of the trade down, so to speak. Like, I don't think it's worth it to go from Evans to Shakir, or Evans to Dobbs, or Mooney, or Wandale, or anybody like that. I feel like I'd rather just keep Evans if I'm not getting one of these Colts guys. Or maybe if you can move over to Tank Dell with Diggs out for the remainder of the year. Maybe move to Keon Coleman would be interesting, but I just don't know if the production is going to be there like it will be for Mike Evans if you're competing. I feel like it's one of the Colts guys or Tank Dell. If you can move off of one of them, if Evans for one of them, that would be where I'd go. If not, I'd probably just keep Evans. As for Aaron Jones, Etienne, if you could move from Aaron Jones to Travis Etienne, that might be interesting because you get a little bit more longevity. They've been holding on to Etienne, and especially with all of their receivers basically out, if Etienne's receiving output increases, which Tank Bigsby's not been utilized as a receiving back, Etienne was. Last time we saw him, he had like 7 targets. So if he turns into Rashad White or Bucky Irving, I feel like that's probably a win from the PPR standpoint than riding with Aaron Jones as a 30-year-old. And if he gets hurt, he's kind of done. So Etienne might be an interesting one. Maybe Najee. Maybe Tyrone Tracy, if you can get him. Not sure. Maybe Bucky. I don't know. I feel like the running back is harder to go for with a trade down. And it also depends on the other teams, that if they're competing or not, if they even want Aaron Jones. But those are probably the names that I would look for. And then why aren't wide receiver handcuffs more of a thing? I feel like it's probably because wide receivers in general, because there's so many of them on the field at the same time, that is not known if their production is even going to increase whenever a wide receiver above them goes out. Because I mean, a perfect example, Houston Texans last night. Maybe it's not a perfect example in terms of like Stroud had a really bad game, but people were in on maybe starting Xavier Hutchinson, maybe starting John Mechie. Robert Woods ended up working out because he had like a one long catch. But any of those guys you could assume would be a handcuff to Nico Collins or Stephon Diggs, or especially both, with both of them out, and it's just Tank Dell. None of them really ended up working out. So I feel like with running back is so much easier because there's generally only one running back on the field at one time. So you would assume that the next man up strategy would come into play because when running back is not on the field, the other running back is on the field, and they're most likely to get the touches. Whereas at wide receiver, there's 2, 3, 4 of them on the field at the same time, and then it just becomes a talent thing on who earns the actual targets. So that's why it's kind of harder to use the handcuff model for wide receivers, and why it's kind of slightly easier to use the handcuff model for tight ends, because generally there's only one tight end on the field at once, or one receiving tight end on the field at once. And especially if other wide receivers go down, you see the tight ends bump up. That's like why Kate Otton's doing so well right now, or Evan Ingram's probably going to do so well at the end of the year. David Njoku to an extent with Amari Cooper and Jameis, but I think that's why with wide receiver handcuffs, it's harder just because there's so many of them on the field at the same time. Vince also kind of says it too. Wide receiver production is more tied to talent. RB production is more tied to opportunity. That's a good way to put it too. You have to be talented in order to actually earn the target. That's why targets are a wide receiver stat, not a quarterback stat. Unless everybody's just completely demolished. Rashad Perriman, like 2-3 years ago or whatever, remember, played for like the Buccaneers whenever Godwin was hurt and Evans was hurt, and I don't even remember if they had Julio Jones on the team at the time, but I remember starting Rashad Perriman at one point, who I don't think is talented, but I think he was like last resort. It might have been while Jameis was still there too. 10 team, 3 super flex. Would you trade Josh Allen and Evans for Kyler and BTJ? Wow. I think Josh Allen is worth Kyler and BTJ, and a 3 super flex. I get it's still 10 team, but I feel like I'd rather just have Josh Allen. And Mike Evans is not a nothing piece here. I think I just want to hold on to Josh Allen. It's a very enticing offer for sure, but I think at the end of the day, it's just Josh Allen. What are you moving Deontay for picks wise? I'm with you from your video from earlier in the week that it's time to sell. Wanted to add more to him to get a late first, but couldn't get it done. Yeah, I'd be surprised. You'd have to do one of those, like it's a projected early second and Deontay for a projected playoff first. That could be anywhere from like 7 to 11 or 7 to 10. But you'd have to add like an early second, like a non-playoff second, in order to probably get to that first. I'm not selling Deontay for anything less than a second. That's for sure. You're not going to get a first from him, and you're not probably going to be able to add to him to get to a first. It feels weird to sell Deontay for just a second, because I feel like that there's upside still with Deontay after this season. That he does well enough on a playoff NFL team that then next year he goes and signs somewhere else, and then that's probably worth more than a second round pick. 2 seconds, maybe. The only path that I could see where you want to trade Deontay for a second is if you are competing, and that second round pick is an easier piece to then sell in your next trade for an upgrade than Deontay Johnson is right now. I think if you're rebuilding, you have Deontay, I think you're kind of just stuck with him. I would hold on to him until he regains value by going back to an offense where he is more of the one, or an offense that we enjoy more from a passing volume standpoint if he is the 1A, 1B than Baltimore. Like if he's the one that goes and signs with Cincy after they let T. Higgins go, they get Deontay for cheaper. That's a much better spot for him to be more of the 1A, 1B than Baltimore, of course. So yeah, I think I'd like to say 2 seconds is where I'm at. Don't know if you're getting that. I don't know if I would sell him for just 1 second. Again, it would just have to be, I think I can do a second deal after that deal where that second round pick is worth more to the other person that I'm trading for or trading with than Deontay is. I feel like that's not a very clear cut answer, but it's a weird circumstance with Deontay right now. Maybe best case scenario is he ends up overtaking Zay Flowers, and maybe he is more of the one moving forward once he gets integrated into the offense and produces more than expected. So maybe it's not a bad thing to hold on to him. Ace, Contender, half PPR, Superflex, trading DJ Moore, Jalen Wright, and a 26 late first for Jamar Chase. That is Jamar Chase so easily, all day, every day. Jamar Chase. Are we ready to fire up Hawkinson week 1 or go with Zach Ertz? Great question. I feel like my general rule is not to play these players on their first week back from injury, especially their first week back from uh ACL injury, you know? Uh right now, Paulson has Hawkinson ranked as the tight end 13, and he has Ertz ranked as the tight end 16. I think some of that is maybe a little bit of uh, matchup as well. Indianapolis has been a terrible defense for everybody, and the Giants are kind of stingy. And they held Freiermuth pretty well last week, but also the Washington offense is a lot better. I think if it was me personally, I mean, they're projected within a point of each other in Paulson's rankings. I feel like I just roll Zach Ertz out there. But if you want to roll with Hawkinson, I'm not opposed to it. I just feel so weird starting these guys on their first week back from injury. So I think if it was me, I'd go with Zach Ertz. But I don't think Hawkinson is a bad start. Happy November Friday. What's up, Christian? It is weird that we are in November already. Weird, weird, weird. Another option I considered was sending Addison in a second for 325s. I mean, I would do that one too, but I prefer the first round picks. Good morning. One quarterback league PPR. Should I trade away Jonathan Brooks for a 25 first in the lotto? Is a 25 early to mid first round better option than Jonathan Brooks? Oh man. I think the only reason why I'm going to say I prefer Jonathan Brooks on this is because this is a one quarterback league. So if this was super flex and the 104, 105, 106 were more valuable spots to have because you get the quarterbacks thrown into there, like if Sanders gets taken and he's like the 101, 102 in a super flex league, that's going to bump back Tet or Burden or whoever else, Genty. It's going to bump back one of them to the 104. And then let's say, quarterback 2 gets thrown into there. I don't know who that would be, but maybe that would be better. That's better than in a one quarterback league where the top 3 picks are literally 101, 102, 103. And if you have the 104, you might be stuck at a really hard value cliff. Or if it's 105, that might be even a worse value cliff. If it's 106, that's probably even worse. Like, think about how the class was this year in one quarterback leagues where it went Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, Rome Odunze, Brock Bowers, value cliff down to, at that point, it was between Worthy and BTJ and Brooks himself. So depending on who you took there, you're either happy or maybe not so much. And then 106 was another one of those guys. So I feel like because this is a one quarterback, I feel like I'd rather hold on to Jonathan Brooks. Brooks would definitely be the RB2 in the class next year. And unless you're getting a top 3 pick with from the lottery, honestly, it probably might even need to be 101 or 102, top 2 pick. Then you're not going to get Genty, which means that Jonathan Brooks would then be the better running back to have after that for everybody else. I would take Tet, Genty, and Burden over Brooks right now. But if you can't guarantee me that this is a top 3 pick, I would rather have Jonathan Brooks. I think I'd rather, instead of playing the lottery game, I think I'd rather just have Brooks and see what he does for the second half when he actually plays. With BTJ and DK banged up, do you like Trevor Lawrence or Geno Smith this week? Have a good start this week with Garrett Wilson last night. That makes it. Oh, nice. The Garrett Wilson points. I think I lean towards Geno in this. And yeah, Paulson has Geno ranked as the QB 10. Trevor Lawrence is ranked as the QB 28. So massive difference in projections there too. That is a 3-point difference in projections. I think the Rams Seahawks game might be really, really fun too. And it's at home for Seattle. So even with DK banged up, I still trust the other weapons than Lawrence without any weapons. And Lawrence gets a what has become a tougher defense in Philadelphia if he's going to get sacked a lot. A lot of stalled drives. Not good for fantasy production. Give me Geno Smith. Christian, do you need a QB3 as a contender? Have an offer of Darnold and Godwin for Waddle and a 26th third. T. Higgins is officially doubtful. That sucks. Kyler, Dak, Fields, O'Connell, A.J. Brown, Olave, DK, Tillman. Waddle not performing, but insulated and can boom. I think I'd rather have Darnold and Godwin. Um, I think Darnold and Waddle are already pretty similarly valued, but I would take Godwin over a 26th third easily. Um, I think that there's probably better things that you can do with both of those pieces, whether individually or together, than just Waddle and a third 2 years from now. And it gives you the extra insulation of Darnold as your QB3 in case one of the other guys were to get hurt, because Justin Fields is no longer anything. Like if this was Fields and Godwin, I would do this easily for Waddle, but um, they probably wouldn't do that then if they're asking for Darnold and Godwin. No, I think I would hold on to Darnold here as your QB3. Not opposed to moving Darnold, but I think you should get better value back. Brees or Swift in a 25 first, somewhere around 105, 106. I'll take Brees Hall in this one. The tear down is intriguing, especially with where the first is potentially, but I think I'd still just lean Brees Hall. Pick value for JSN and Superflex, any first. If you could sell JSN for any first, I'm totally on board with that, especially if this is the same, if it's a 12-team league. Any first and Superflex is a fine trade-off for me. I would be buying JSN for anything less than a first, though. So he's kind of one of those I wouldn't sell for less, but wouldn't buy for more kind of guys. But I'd sell for any first. Last 6 place teams fight for 101. Better of the worst wins it. Low-key, I hate that. That rule. Anyway, I have top 2 team, but injuries have me 2 spots out of the playoffs. If I miss the playoffs, my team likely wins the 101. Help. Hold on 1 second. Is this the second part of this? Or like is help just like help? In this one, how much would you add to Pickens to acquire CMC and Mason, or to Najee to acquire ETN and Bigsby? I'd be willing to add from Pickens to CMC. I wouldn't be willing to add a first to get to that point. A second would do it easily, but I don't think the CMC manager would sell for a second with Pickens. 2 seconds, maybe. It would have to be something kind of in that value range for a player. From Najee to ETN and Bigsby, that's probably more like just a second. Because then you're basically moving from Najee to ETN, which I feel like is pretty fair, and then you're paying the second for Bigsby. So that one is like an actual second. Pickens one, I'm not entirely sure on. Because the Pickens one is not. I would not add a first to George Pickens to go get Christian McCaffrey. But it's probably not going to get done for a second. So it's somewhere in the middle. 2 different leagues. So what like specifically are you asking help for? Because you laid out your situation. I don't know if I like because you don't have your first round pick. That's kind of like the rough part. I was frozen for a second, but I was thinking. Do I overpay to get your first back? I mean, if you're 2 spots out of the playoffs right now, and the weeks are dwindling by, what do we have? 5 more weeks of the regular season, 5 or 6 more weeks to make up that 2-game gap. Yeah, I mean, I would probably assume that you are more of a retooler. I wouldn't call you a rebuilder. But I mean, yeah, like I would like to pay to get your first back. I just don't know, what does that even look like? Or force a playoff push knowing that I get Christian McCaffrey back. I feel like that decision is being made more on what is the price to get your first round pick back. Because if you can get your first round pick back somewhat easily, then I feel like I would probably just let your team go decide what it wants to do over the next month. And then we get into December, then you see where you're at, if you made the playoffs or not. If you didn't make the playoffs, then hopefully you get the 101 then if you win your toilet bowl. Um, but if you can't get your first round pick, like they're just like, yeah, you gotta do this and blah blah blah. Like, yes, I would pay Rome Odunze for your first. I feel like that's pretty easy. That's pretty insurance. That's pretty good insurance for one way or another. Because I feel like even if you make the playoffs, it's not a bad thing that you trade away Rome for a playoff first. But if you don't make the playoffs and it ends up being 101, and then you get Tet or Genti or somebody like that, and then maybe you can make other moves to kind of uh, give yourself some more long term solutions as well that maybe don't lose your production for the toilet bowl. But yeah, I would trade Rome for your first if that's what does it. Big Stoey is a contender trying to upgrade from Pickens with Chase Brown or Bucky Irving, struggling to find a partner or a target. Yeah, why do you want to upgrade from George Pickens? That's kind of my question. He's a buy right now. He's a massive buy. Has been for me for a couple weeks, for Justin for a couple weeks. If you're going to try to upgrade from him, though, I think you got to get up to. I think you got to be able to try and get into the London Wilson Metcalf range. I don't know if Chase Brown or Bucky Irving get you into there. If you have to pay more than Bucky to get up into that range, it just might not be worth it. Because honestly, I don't know if there is a massive difference between Pickens and DK Metcalf rest of season. And Pickens is then also going to be 3 years younger. So I maybe I'm just too high on George Pickens. I don't know. But I feel like any upgrades that you can make with Pickens with these players is not worth the upgrade for Pickens. And you probably have to add more to get an actual player that is worth upgrading to. Like getting to Brian Thomas Jr. or Puka or AJ Brown. You don't trust him. He's a head case. Hey man, he's a squeaky wheel. He's a squeaky wheel for sure. He was 2 plays away from called face mask back on a penalty from a touchdown, and 1 foot twice does not equal 2 feet rule from a second touchdown. He's been phenomenal without Russell Wilson, or with Russell Wilson, I should say, without Fields. So yeah, I feel like unless Bucky gets you into Garrett Wilson or Drake London or Brian Thomas Jr., then I probably wouldn't. Like I wouldn't do Chase Brown and George Pickens and move up to get Devonta Smith. You know, I don't think that that's worth it. Or Olave or anybody like that. You know, I think you got to add more to get higher, or just stick with George Pickens. And then where do we value Kareem Hunt? Would you trade him for a 3rd rounder on a rebuilding team? Yes. Yeah, if you're rebuilding and you still have Kareem Hunt, he would be gone as soon as possible. I would like a 2nd round pick, but if it's a 3rd rounder, then that's totally fine, because Pacheco could be back in a couple weeks, relegate Kareem Hunt back to the bench, or at worst, a terrible 50-50 split. That's really annoying for both of them. And then next year, Kareem Hunt evaporates into dust because he's like 30 years old. Kind of like how Leonard Fournette was a couple years ago when he was on like the Bills or whatever. Was that last year? Was that already last year that Fournette was on the Bills and now he can't even get a job? That's the fear. So yeah, if you're rebuilding, I would love a 2nd round pick. I would add a 3rd to Kareem Hunt to get a 2nd if that's what makes it get done, instead of trading him for just a 3rd. But at the end of the day, I still would take a 3rd round pick for Kareem Hunt. Rank them rest of season: T, Devonta Smith, and Chris Olave. Man, if T. Higgins was healthy, he would be at the top of this list for sure. I still think that he is. I just wish he was healthy. It would go healthy T. Higgins, then Olave, then Devonta Smith, then not healthy T. Higgins if he's out for another couple weeks, because he was a complete DMP all week. And if that continues for another week or two, that's going to be really rough. But I think Olave is number 2 on this list, or number 1 if T. Higgins misses another couple weeks, and then Devonta Smith after that. I think Olave is going to be really good without Rashid Shaheed, and then whenever Carr comes back, should hopefully be just absolutely peppered with targets. That's the hope. Mustang 7-1 team. What do we do with Travis Etienne? Get another piece or pick? Honestly, I think you're holding on to ETN. You're hoping that his production comes back whenever he's back and healthy, and then you can move off of him from there. And it's possible because, as I kind of mentioned earlier, not sure if you were in here, but when I said about all of their receivers are gone, and it's just Parker Washington and Evan Ingram, and maybe BTJ plays, maybe he doesn't. But if ETN gets receiving workload and he's productive from that standpoint, and he's still getting 8, 9, 10 carries a game, that's still going to get it done from a fantasy perspective if he's getting 4, 5, 6 receptions. So I would hold on to Travis Etienne because I think he's at a really low point right now that he's just not worth moving. And you're hoping that he either gets traded and his value goes up from that, or he comes back and his production goes up and his value goes up back from that. I think if you've already had ETN and you're 7-1 basically without him for the entirety of the year, or despite him, if you were playing him, just hold on to Travis Etienne and see if hopefully something better happens. Oh yeah, we already hit on that one. A couple dynasty trades and a 10x10 to send Ingram for Addison. Send a mid to late first for James Cook. I'll take James Cook on that one. That's an easier one. Dang it, Thielen's not playing this week. I was hoping Thielen would play. He was another production winner. If you want a really cheap wide receiver for the remainder of the year, Adam Thielen, man, whenever he comes back, if he gets that Deontay Johnson role with Andy Dalton hopefully back too, that'd be phenomenal. So if you want like a really cheap shot on production as a contender, Adam Thielen. Anyway, chasing breakers. I would take James Cook, and I would take. I'd rather Addison for Ingram. I get it. I think from a value standpoint, most people would take Addison. I think I'd prefer Evan Ingram, especially if he's going to have a really strong end of the year without Christian Kirk, just like we did last year. And I would rather add to Ingram to get a better wide receiver than Addison than just move him straight up for Addison. So I'll take Ingram for that one. Yeah. I still think it gets better. Jason and Bigsby for Puka? What? Give me Puka in that one. That one's easy. That one's mad easy. What would you need to tier down from Reed to Pickens? I would love a second. If you could do Pickens in a second for Jaden Reed and tier down from Reed, that'd be fantastic. Or any other kind of like this would be one where if you were on the other side, I would be offering Jaden Reed for Pickens and Bucky Irving, or Pickens and Chase Brown, or just Pickens in a second. That's where I would be if you had Jaden Reed to go down to get to Pickens. If ETN rebounds, does he become a sell high for non-contenders? Absolutely. Yeah, if you're rebuilding, you should probably not have ETN by the end of the year. Even if I wouldn't say if he doesn't rebound, I would hold on to him through the offseason to see if the offseason actually helps him. But if he does, especially if he rebounds, you should not have him if you're a rebuilder by the end of the year. 10-team Superflex rebuilder. What do you think of trading Najee for Cedric Tillman and Braylon Allen? I actually don't mind that. I feel like from a value standpoint, you might be able to get an extra something on top. If that it's not a second, but like an extra third or something to do that. Maybe this is just me being too high on Cedric Tillman already. But I like this moving off of Najee for Tillman and Allen. I like that as a rebuilder. Maybe it's not the best thing that you can do with Najee Harris right now, but it's definitely not the worst. I don't mind this. I would take Tillman and Braylon as a rebuilder. Yeah. Try to see if you can squeeze out just a little bit more. Just a little bit more. Any thoughts on usable running backs I can try to acquire for the stretch run? Just got Mostert for a third, but I'm looking for something a little bit more stable. Most of the good running backs are already on contending rosters. So it's been tough to acquire one. If ETN, if somebody wants to trade off of ETN, it's really just handcuffs, man. I don't know if you're going to be able to buy a stable running back for the rest of the year. I think you're probably just going to be trying to play the handcuff game, and you're hoping then that handcuff becomes the starter. So Mostert was a good example of that. Maybe if you can go buy Ray Davis or Corum or Tyjae Spears or Algier. Rico might not be a bad buy if you could just buy Rico. There's really nothing stable about any of these guys, and I think that's if you're trying to find stable, I don't think you're going to find that. I think you just need to load up on shots, on cheap shots, to just have as many nets as possible that you're casting, and you're hoping that you catch something with one of them. Um, Rashad White, if you're looking for a more expensive option, it would be Rashad White, Travis Etienne. Yeah. I don't know if anybody's selling off of Tyron Tracy. Maybe you could just buy Chuba Hubbard and just hope that Jonathan Brooks doesn't come back soon. Or Chubb or Spears. That's probably a solid list of guys that I feel like I would go for and see what happens. So Addison, don't skip my next. I come down to the bottom every time. Addison, don't skip my next comment. What is your next comment? Deontay Johnson gets a quarterback upgrade and an offensive environment upgrade, so it's time to sell him. Hey, I mean, I said in the video earlier this week that I think he's a sell. I also think that he's a difficult sell. Is that the comment you were talking about, Kenji? I'm trying to get Madison for. Oh, there's another one. Maybe Madison is somebody that you can get for a down the stretch kind of usability guy. Good looks, Christian. Waddle and Dobbs for Mike Evans. I think I would rather just hold on to Waddle and Dobbs. Because the issue with Mike Evans is you still have to wait 3 more weeks, I think, at least probably for him to come back. So I'd rather just have Waddle with Tua back and Dobbs. These work too. These might be a little bit more expensive, but I like Dobbins and Connor for sure. Najee, Pollard. Yeah. Eric with the $5 super chat. Thank you so much, my man. Retooling and setting up for next season to compete. Sitting on 5.25 seconds and 2/3 along with my first recommendations on handling those 25 seconds. Oh, my nose is a little allergies. So if you're retooling, looking to compete next season, those seconds, they're I'd love to know what your roster looks like. Can you don't have to send another super chat, but can you just drop what your roster looks like in the comments? Because the general idea that I have in my head right now is how can we utilize a couple of those seconds to upgrade pieces that you already have right now. Maybe you can go after some injured guys. Maybe you can go for some buy low guys if it's, if you can give some win now production to some competing teams and a second for an upgraded piece that's maybe currently injured or currently not producing as well as what we think. So that's kind of like my general idea and what I'm trying to see if any of this would work depending on what your roster looks like. So Kyler Goff looks good. Rashid, Nico, Pittman, Ladd, Deontay, Wandell. Nice. You already got Rashid Rice. So that's like step one. Got an A+ in my book for having Rashid Rice and Nico, a man after my heart. Brian Robinson and Trey Benson. All right. All right. No other running backs other than that. Just B. Rob and Benson. Or no one else of note, perhaps. All right. Yeah, so just from the roster that you've dropped there, I would love to see, can we attach a second to Austin Eckler and Andrew's likely Schultz? Okay, cool. So the pieces, let's start from square one. The pieces that I think are the the best ones to probably keep for next year would be Kyler, Rice, Nico, um, Pittman. Yes or no? It depends on how he does for the remainder of the year. If he still isn't good, then he's probably just better to hold on to because you're probably not going to get anything really for him. Benson, Marshawn Lloyd, Andrews. So that's like your core. And then Goff, McConkey, Wandale, Deontay, and the other tight ends are probably like those guys are guys that I wouldn't actively be trying to move right now based on where you're at, but can be moved, I think, if the right opportunity presents itself. Maybe Lad moves in more towards the 2025 category. Goff too. But so basically, Brian Robinson and a second, what does that get you? Does that move you over into the wide receiver side? Could you move Brian Robinson in a second for um, Jalen Waddle or somebody like that? Or maybe you can even go higher than that. You might be able to get Brian Robinson in a second for Jaden Reed or I don't. The other name that I would toss out there is how can you go acquire Brandon Ayuk? Like if the Ayuk manager in your league is competing, can you trade away Wandale in a second for Brandon Ayuk? Would love that. So he would be target number one. I'd look to see if you can try to move off of Brian Robinson. Yeah. I don't think he's bad to hold into next year because I think he'll still be competitive. But I think that he offers a lot of value right now that you could trade off of him and get something good for that has more longevity. Eckler is kind of in the same way. Eckler and a second, can that get you, you know, even if it's Eckler and a second for J.K. Dobbins, and then you use J.K. Dobbins and then move up from there. Or if it's Eckler in a second and maybe you can go get Isaiah Pacheco, that might be interesting to go see if you can buy. Or Jonathan Brooks. Can you try and go see if you can do maybe it's Eckler, Deontay, and a second for Jonathan Brooks or something like that. I'm just working off the top of the dome right here on some of these values. I don't know if all those trades would necessarily work, but those are kind of the general ideas for players that I would like to go after, or the idea on what I would like to do just in general. Brandon Ayuk, Jonathan Brooks, Isaiah Pacheco, Jalen Waddle might be another good trade target right now too. Yeah, those I think if you can try it for those, or Jalen Wright works. Yep, that's another good one. Blake Corum works. Those kind of higher valued handcuffs that really aren't doing all that much right now. That definitely work. Maybe you could try to see if you could upgrade off of Andrews and move towards a Dalton Kincaid to get a little bit younger, or maybe you could buy low on Sam Laporta. But those are the names. Those are the possibilities that I'd probably try and see if you can work towards. Yeah, cool. Thanks, makes sense. Awesome. Appreciate the $5 super chat, my man. And again, if you have any more questions or anything like that, you're just like, hey, I've been talking with the Ayuk owner. This is what we're looking at. How's that make sense? Blah, blah. Feel free if you have any other follow-up questions to just drop them down in the chat or in the comments after the fact. We can continue the conversation further on just from today. Where are we at? John's in the chat. Did he leave? John was in here and then pieced. John. Where did I leave off? Oh, right here. Robert. 12-team PPR start 9, no kickers in defense. Redraft league just traded Hubbard for Pickens. Love it. God, I love that so much. Go get George Pickens, man. I love it. It would be cool if JK and Connor could stay healthy down the stretch, but I wouldn't bank on it. Yeah, that's the one issue with those guys too. I think they're good buys now if you can't. John's back. What's up, man? How about Deontay and Likely for Waddle? I'll take Jalen Waddle on that one pretty easily. Ayuk for Montgomery. If you're competing, I would definitely take Brandon Ayuk. I looked right at David Montgomery's name and I said Brandon Ayuk. Try again. Brain needs to slow down. If you're competing, I would trade Brandon Ayuk for David Montgomery. But I think that this works well on the opposite side too. So this is probably a win-win for both teams if it's a contender and a rebuilder. I'm high on Cedric Tillman, but so is my league mate, and he's asking for 2 seconds. Would that be crazy to pay that? I think so. I'm still at the point where I'm not even sure if I want to pay a second for Tillman. I think I would be willing to pay a late second for Tillman, but I think 2 seconds is just there's still too much unknown with him that I still really like him. I'm high on him too. I just don't know if I'd be willing to pay 2 seconds for him. Trade Pittman, Richardson, and Kraft for Tank Dell and Jonathan Brooks. How do we feel about that trade? I love it personally. You got off of Anthony Richardson, which is always a win. Hurts to sell Tucker Kraft, but Dell over Pittman for sure. And yeah, you got Jonathan Brooks too. I like this a lot. I really think that some people would probably see more of the value in Anthony Richardson or more of the value in Tucker Kraft. But I just give me Tank Dell and Jonathan Brooks, man. Those are 2 better assets that are probably more productive and or more likable in other trades from the rest of your league mates. Oh, there's John in his first your initial comment, John. Can't stay, but wanted to stop in and say hello. We are. Let's go, dude. Big game tomorrow. Noon Eastern time. Everybody's rooting for Penn State in here, right? Everybody? Don't let me know if you're an Ohio State fan. Don't let me catch you. Hank, 12-team PPR, 1 flex. What should I be able to get for Rachaad White in future picks? You're probably at best getting a second. Maybe you can squeak out 2 seconds to somebody who's like really in on him without Godwin and Evans. You might be able to squeak out 2. But I think the days of getting a first-round pick for Rachaad White are long gone. And it's probably, I think your expectation is more likely a second, or maybe it's like a second and a third. Maybe you get 2. Javonte or Amari Cooper starting this week. I'll go with Javonte still. But we're getting pretty close to Amari being a pretty solid start. I will say, though, that Buffalo smacks the crap out of Miami every single time they play them. Let's see. Where does Paulson has Amari as the flex 68, and he's got Javonte, if I can spell, as the flex 74. So they're separated by 1 PPR point. He likes Amari a little bit better. But if he gets Jalen Ramsey, though, Denver against Baltimore's defense, it's kind of hit or miss. He might get some receiving work, though. I think I still lean Javonte for the touch floor that he's going to have. Non-PPR definitely hurts, though. All right, I changed my answer. And non-PPR, I'll take Amari Cooper. I think he has a better opportunity to score a touchdown. Captain Kirk, what's good, my man? Welcome in. Would you do Josh Allen for Kyler and Rice? Oh, not Rashee Rice. I still don't think I would. That really is tugging on my heartstrings there. But I don't think that there's a massive difference between Rice and Brian Thomas Jr. right now, even if you are or are not including Mike Evans. No, I think I'd still hold on to Josh Allen. It's still Josh Allen. So I think I'd still just hold on to Josh Allen. Where are we at? Roll Tide. Ugh, I hate saying that. Sorry. I'm playing the whole season with only 1 running back in Kenneth Walker since my other backs are Braylon Allen, Charbonnet, Benson, Vidal, Garendo. 5 and 3 stacked to wide receiver. Should I make a move? Trade down to the Hall owner? Yeah, I mean, the only I don't know what your wide receivers look like, but yeah, I mean, if you can trade a wide receiver over to a running back, I'm not opposed to that and balancing out your roster a little bit more too. Allen, trading Allen to the Hall owner, that might be the one guy that has a little bit more value in Allen too. But I mean, if the upside with all these handcuffs is that if any of their starters were to go down, they would be so productive. Maybe not Vidal as much. I mean, yeah, Vidal would be good with Dobbins, but if Gus Edwards comes back soon, but Benson would be so good without Connor. Garendo would be so good without Mason and Christian McCaffrey. Allen would be so good without Hall. That's the upside with all these handcuffs. But yeah, I'm not opposed. I don't know who your wide receivers are, but I'm not opposed to balancing out your roster. Nico Wilson, Olave, Higgins, JSN, Marvo Dunze. Holy crap. I'd probably throw out JSN, Olave, or Odunze onto the trade market and see what you can get. If you can get any of, maybe you could buy low on. I don't even think you can buy low on Achan, but Achan, JT, James Cook. Those are probably those. Because I wouldn't trade any of those guys straight up for like a Derrick Henry or straight up for an Alvin Kamara or straight up for Monty or B Rob, because I think those JSN I would trade for Monty and B Rob, and Henry. But the other two, Olave and Odunze, I think are worth more than those older productive guys. That with those guys, you need to get into the James Cook, Jonathan Taylor range. Achan. If you could add to them and get Kyron, I think that would work too. Like if it was Olave in a second for Kyron, Odunze in a second for Kyron, I'm in on that. So yeah, I think with those three wide receivers specifically, I'd probably see if you could try to do something and maybe move over and you can get a top 10, top 12 running back. I'd like a little bit of longevity though. Like that's what I mean. I don't really necessarily want to go straight for like a Derrick Henry. Henry's probably not available either. He's probably on a contender. But identify the rebuilders in your team, which teams even want JSN or Odunze or Olave, see which running backs they have, and then that gives you your list of guys, and then put the pieces together of the puzzle and make a deal happen. 10-team half PPR tight end and superflex, tight end premium and superflex. Would you trade Deontay and Likely for Waddle? Yes, I would take Jalen Waddle on that one pretty easily. I'm 7-1 with Murray, Carr, Young as my quarterback, so I move in early to mid 26 second for Stafford. Side question: could you just move Bryce Young for Stafford? If this other team is trying to rebuild, could you just move Young for Stafford or Young in a third for Stafford? I would trade away a 26 second for Stafford. I'm on board with that. But you might be able to keep the second and then trade away Bryce Young. Maybe. I don't have much faith in Bryce Young. That's why. My co-manager has tried to convince me to trade Zay Flowers in the current 103 for either AJ Brown or Puka. I think this is too much. I disagree. Both of those guys are so freaking good. The 103 hurts. That's definitely hard. But I mean, AJ Brown, man, AJ Brown is literally going to win people leagues with the remainder of the season schedule that he has. I would do it for either of these guys. I prefer AJ Brown over Puka, but I'd do it for either of them. Receive Pacheco and Mooney, send Pollard, Deontay in a third. I think Pollard is better for Pacheco. If you're looking strictly for the rest of the year, I think Pollard is better to have than Pacheco. I think Pacheco is definitely better to have for Dynasty, but I think Pollard is going to be better for the end of season. Mooney and Deontay, I feel like are just kind of the same, and then a third. So it really just comes down to: do you prefer? Are you really just acting in terms of what is best for the next 7 weeks, 7-8 weeks, or what is best for your team entirely, from a dynasty standpoint? Because I think for the next 7-8 weeks, I'd rather have Tony Pollard than Isaiah Pacheco. Even with the playoffs, I don't think Pacheco is going to be good in the playoffs at all. I don't think he's going to be good. He's not going to help you. He wouldn't even start on your roster if this was my roster. But then because of that, where you wouldn't have the need to start Pacheco, maybe it is better just to go get him, because I think he would be better than Tony Pollard from a dynasty standpoint. So that's the kind of the thought process for both of those. Uh, is Shakir worth buying with a late 2 to 3 best ball no waivers, all free agents, including in the rookie draft? Shakir seems like Allen's favorite target, but at the same time, fourth in the pecking order. Um, no, I think Shakir is worth buying for a late second and third, especially in best ball. I think that's totally fine. You don't got to worry about actually like starting him. You just let him do his thing. I'm fine paying a late second and third for Khalil Shakir. I'm fine with that. How do you feel about Tracy and Irving next year? Will they keep their job or do they get a running back in the draft? I have more confidence that Bucky Irving will maintain his role or, in fact, grow his role next year than I do Tracy. Now, it's not to say that I don't think Tracy will have the starting job next year. I just think Bucky has a better chance of having that next year. The Giants might go out and, maybe they want a Devin Singletary replacement, but they end up getting a steal in the draft. They end up getting another Tyrone Tracy. And now Tracy maybe not be the most talented running back in that backfield. Kind of like what the Buccaneers did with drafting Bucky Irving. He ended up just being better than Rachaad White. So I like Bucky Irving a lot. He is basically, I think, this year's Tyjae Spears. I like him a lot. And I would be holding on to him for 2025. Tracy, I do like. He's definitely been growing on me a lot over the past couple of weeks. Honestly, he was a really good stash anyway. I've drafted him in a couple fourth rounders of rookie drafts in the offseason for this exact reason. But he's definitely been growing on me in terms of, I think that he has a bit more longevity than I initially thought that he had. So I do like him for 2025. I do think, though, that the Giants have a higher probability of bringing somebody else in of equal or better talent than Tyrone Tracy than the Buccaneers have with Bucky Irving. Both of those probabilities I think are low. I just think that the Giants' probability is a little bit higher. Who do you all like more rest of season, Deontay or Pittman? Pittman, for sure, with Joe Flacco. Yeah, 100%. Sold Dell and Pittman for Puka. How do we feel about the value? That is a 2 thumbs up value right there. Freaking love Puka Nacua, man. Amazing. Would you be buying your first back 103, 105 with Puka? I think I'd rather keep Puka unless it's guaranteed 103 or better, but curious other stuff. If it's I would not use Puka to buy your first round pick back if that's where your first round pick is going to end up landing. If you were a hardcore rebuild, you're guaranteed to get like the 101, 102, and it was going to end up being like Tet or Burden or somebody like that, then I'd be totally fine with that. But I also think that Puka is a really good asset just to have in general. So I would rather have Puka than these picks. Honestly, I'd probably still rather have Puka than Tet or Burden. I think it's just the flexibility of that 101, 102. If you're that hardcore of a rebuilder, is maybe a little bit better to have from a team dynamic standpoint or roster construction standpoint than Puka. But since your picks are projected to be kind of more mid-ish than early, I'd take Puka. Flowers versus Denver secondary or Worthy versus Tampa's weak secondary? Worthy, I think. Flowers has been really good in the shootout games. I don't know if this Denver Broncos game is going to be a shootout. They've been low-key pretty good offensively. But I think I'd rather have Worthy versus Tampa. I missed what you said on the Coker versus Leggett. Coker is fine. Leggett's better. Legette's still better. Thielen, though. Thielen is I think the wide receiver to have rest of season from a production standpoint. For the next 7 to 8 weeks, I think Thielen is a guy. What's a fair return that you think for Ramondre as a rebuilder? I think you're kind of in the same boat as the Rachaad White thing, where I think you're past the days of the first. You're probably only going to get a second. Maybe you can squeak out 2 seconds, or a second and a third, whatever it is. I think at best you'd be getting 2 seconds. More realistically, you're probably just getting 1 or 1 and a third. That's where we're at with Ramondre. Ryan, what's up, man? Happy Friday. Happy Friday. Matthew just traded Mooney in a third for Ayuk, retooling and competing for next year. Well done. That's another 2 thumbs up from me. Absolutely phenomenal. Ken, in a 16-team Superflex half PPR, second year of a rebuild, but doing well. This is the roster with the quarterbacks, Lennon Reed, Ayuk. Robinson, Ramondre, Bigsby, Kincaid. Traded Downs for Ayuk before Anthony Richardson. Flacco news and Jameis news last week. Hindsight should have waited, but now I'm debating to find a good wide receiver 3 and make a run now, or keep rebuilding and stockpile assets to compete better next year and keep forward long term. So you're 5-3, you're 6 in points 4. Honestly, I don't see any assets on your team that are like glaringly win now in terms of like you need to remove these guys from your roster ASAP, like an Austin Eckler or maybe an Aaron Jones if you're on the fence about where you're at, or anybody like that. I think Ramondre could maybe be on the bridge of that category. Maybe you'd be interested in trading away Brian Robinson too if you're more hesitant about leaning into competing and one more lean into a retool. But I don't think anybody on this roster is bad from that standpoint. So I might try to see maybe over the next week or two what your team is trying to tell you. If you are, you're 5-3, you're 6 in points 4. Maybe if you could be 7-3 by mid-November. Maybe you're 8-5 by. Is that the right math? 3, 4. If ish 8-5 after Thanksgiving, somewhere in there. However that math works out. So that's a potential option. I don't know if you have a trade deadline in your league. That's another thing too, of like, if you have a deadline coming up, if it's before Thanksgiving or the week of Thanksgiving, maybe you give your team until that point to then try to see what goes on. You could maybe try to see if you could trade away Brandon Ayuk. I think an easy move to make would be like Ayuk for Terry McLaurin. Maybe you can move Ayuk for a Jalen Waddle or somebody like that. Maybe for George Pickens. Not sure. I think those days are gone. But maybe you can move Ayuk for another kind of mid-20s wide receiver that is still producing right now and producing well and still has longevity, like Ayuk basically would be. McLaurin, I think, is a good one. McLaurin is about to turn 30, but I think he's fine, and you get the stack with Jane Daniels. So you could try that. I'd give my permission to do that with Ayuk, with where you're at with 5-3. Not sure I would be trying to use any picks or anything like that. But I think that I would just let your team tell you what it wants to be over the next couple of weeks, and then figure out where you're at with before your deadline or anything like that. Trax, you're an Ohio State fan. Did I know that? I feel like I might have known that. Oh boy. Oh boy. We'll see what happens. We'll see which one of us is happy next week, Trax. Start 2 in a flex: Irving, Marv, Andrews, Brian Robinson. It's PPR and half tight end premium. I will go with Brian Robinson and Marvin Harrison Jr. for backup. Not Marvin Mims. Marvin Harrison is flex 64 for Paulson. Irving is flex 97. Yikes. Brian Robinson is flex 38. So right now we're at B-Rob and Marvin Harrison, and Andrews is flex 85. With the extra half premium, he'd probably move up to like the 70s. Yeah. So Paulson also says B-Rob and Marvin Harrison Jr. Denver's RB2. I wanted so much more for Javonte. So you would rather have Coker over Leggett? I stepped away when you answered this. No, I'd rather have Leggett. Genji's just spreading propaganda. What value can I get trading Amari Cooper to a contender in picks? Same as Ramondre and Rashad White. Probably a second. Maybe you can tweak out 2. That's probably where we're at. Oh, Jamie, I completely skipped over this. The fact that you said Bucks. I thought you meant like Buccaneers or something like that. But you mean this is Buckeyes. So now you're on my list too. Got like Ryan from The Office with the list. Oh, I feel it this year, man. This is the most confident I've been walking into an Ohio State game in quite some time. Hopefully all their plays. I don't know if anybody's ever said that before. Hopefully, Drew Aller plays. Honestly, you might be hoping that Drew Aller plays as an Ohio State fan. Can I trade away David Njoku for Tony Pollard? And in a tight end premium, I'm taking David Njoku over Pollard. I think you can get a better running back than Njoku if you need a running back. I want Njoku, especially in a tight end premium. 12 team Superflex on full rebuild, have 6 firsts over the next 2 years. Nice. Would you move May and a 26 first for Baker and Odunze? My plan would then be to flip Baker and the other first I have to try to get Hurts. Wow. Can you can't, I guess there's a production standpoint from that, huh? Because I was thinking, could you not just go from May to Hurts without making the other move? But the other guy probably wants the production from Baker to move off of Hurts. That's probably what he's thinking. So May and a 26 first for Baker and a Dunze. I'm in on that. I would do that. And then I would also then flip Baker and a 26 first for Hurts. All right, I'm in. I'm in on the path. I like where we're going. Then you get Roma Dunze and Jalen Hurts for May and 2 firsts. I'm in. Do it. Suggestions on trading Higgins for a running back. Have Neighbors, BTJ, Ladd, Downs, McMillan. With T. Higgins, you would probably have to be in that same range that I mentioned a little bit earlier, that you'd probably need to get like James Cook or Jonathan Taylor, or Kenneth Walker, or anybody in that kind of range. Because I would not trade Higgins for B-Rob or Monty or Kamara. Or I don't even know who else is. Mixon, Jacobs. I would not trade Higgins for any of those guys just because they're old. I'd rather just have the running back or the wide receiver. So that's why I think at the running back, you'd have to get up to Taylor or Cook or Walker or Achane. You might need to add a little something to T. Higgins to get to them, but I'd rather do that to get to these running backs than to go down to an older running back with T. Higgins. Is there any reason to have hope for Pittman with Flacco at quarterback? I don't need top 12 wide receiver. I just need more than 2.1 points. Yeah, 100%. There's reason to have hope. Let me see if I can pull up the splits app. Pittman? Nope. Pittman. With and without Flacco this year. Oh, wrong app. Okay, I can't find it. It's too much pressure on me. Pittman was definitely better with Joe Flacco. Yeah. 6 for 113, 5 for 37 and a touchdown, 3 for 35 and a touchdown. And then as soon as Anthony Richardson came back against Chicago, everything went back down to crap. But those 3 games, double-digit points every single week. Michael Pittman. As a contending team, is it worth upgrading from Brian Robinson to someone like Joe Mixon, even without much running back depth? No, I really don't think so. I mean, if it's like B-Rob in a third for Joe Mixon, but even at then, I don't really know what the point of that would be. I think both of these guys are phenomenal. Brian Robinson is just dealing with a little bit of an injury right now. That I think that's why his production's been down from where it was at the start of the year. Mixon has been absolutely fantastic. He only scored 16 fantasy points last night. He's been in the 20s every other game that he's been healthy and finished. But I don't think it'd be worth it to upgrade from B-Rob to Mixon, because then, God forbid, both these guys get hurt, but then you added something to B-Rob, and then now you don't have whatever that other asset is. So it would depend on what the plus is with B-Rob for me to maybe say okay to it, but I feel like in most scenarios, it's probably just not worth it. Which trade do you prefer in PPR? Dobbins and Madison for Hawk and Olave, or Amon-Ra for BTJ and Marv? What the heck? I would So I'm taking the BTJ and Marv side on that one pretty easily. And then I would also um oh, this is redraft. I scrolled down. We got to that point. Um man, I still feel like I might do the BTJ and Marv side. Um I would do the I want Hawk and Olave over Dobbins and Madison. And I still think I like the BTJ and Marv side, but if that means that you have too many starters, that then you'd have to sit one of BTJ, Marv, and Olave every week. I'd probably rather just have Amon Ra to have the strongest starting lineup. Yeah, sorry, redraft. Yeah, I think I would definitely do the Hawkinson and Olave one. I want Hawk and Olave there. And then the Amon Ra trade would, I think, just depend on how many starters you actually can start, and if breaking Amon Ra down means that you're sitting some good wide receiver then. Because then I'd rather just have Amon Ra in my starting lineup. I'm 5-3 and have 4 firsts. Is trading a first between 103 to 107 worth it for Mixon? Did a retool last season, so 5-3 is unexpected. Have a bunch of wide receivers, but only have Gibbs and JK. No, I would not pay a mid first for Joe Mixon. If it was a later first, I'd probably be more worth it to me, but I wouldn't pay a mid first, especially if it has the ability to be a top 5 pick. I would not pay that for Joe Mixon. It would leave me with BTJ, Marv, Olave, Waddle, Cooper, Higgins. You can only start. You probably have 2 wide receiver spots and then a flex spot too. Then, right? In which case, yeah, I'd probably rather just have Amon. Then you don't have to make decisions. I hate having decisions. Anything that can help me make less decisions every week is a win. And then having a higher starting lineup, more powered starting lineup by having Amon Ra in than debating between BTJ and Marv and Olave and Waddle every single week. And I think I'd rather just have Amon Ra. We got there. We got there, Dane. Let's see. Half PPR, pick 2 this week. DJ Moore, Xavier Worthy, and Calvin Ridley. I'll go with Ridley and DJ Moore. DJ Moore gets the Cardinals, so that's fun. Remove myself from the possibility that Worthy just completely busts. I guess all 3 of these guys could bust, but I'll go with Ridley and DJ Moore. And again, for backup, why did it not? Ridley is flex. I'm in the flex rankings. Ridley's flex 67. Worthy is flex 72, and DJ Moore is flex 52. So yeah, Paulson has it more. Ridley, Worthy. So he'd go Moore and Ridley as well. Nice. Why isn't CJ Stroud getting benched for going 10 for 32? For the same reason that Josh Allen did not. Yeah, no, I'd still take the Olave side on that one. Yeah, you knew that. We talked about this when Ohio State played Oregon. Yes, that's correct. I knew that. I was like, I knew that. I'm also mad at Ohio State from that too, because I bet on your guys' money line. It was the last line that I needed in like a 5-leg money line parlay, and you guys blew it. So I hate Ohio State even more. Get ready to be disappointed, Penn State fans. Oh, I wish it was the whiteout. Can we just talk about for a second how annoying Fox is that this is not a whiteout game because they don't want it to be at night? Why the heck is Penn State Ohio State a noon game? That is so dumb. We all can agree on that, right? We all can agree that Penn State Ohio State should be a night game. Maybe Ohio State fans would be more happy about that because then they don't get to play in the whiteout game. That might be better for Ohio State, but it is so dumb. It's so dumb that it's not a night game. It should be. Speak on that. Why are these guys not getting benched? Because I mean, why would they? You have a better option behind them. Why would they get benched? They're still like they're just having a bad day. But CJ Stroud's bad day is probably still better than I don't even know who their backup is. Um, is it still? It's not still Davis Mills, is it? It is still Davis Mills. Why should they get benched? That would be my counter question for you. You think that they should get benched? I'm asking why should they get benched? That's another thing too. We got to remember this for fantasy football is that he does have a big split when he's facing top defenses. He also has a really big split this year of home roads are also a big time split. Oh, this is an Anthony Richardson agenda, Genji. See, the difference between Richardson and Stroud and Allen is that Stroud and Allen have a history of being so much better than that. Whereas with Richardson, meh. He doesn't have that history. So that's why they keep playing. And Richardson gets benched. Genji just has Anthony Richardson propaganda. No, I haven't been. By the way, I haven't been buying Anthony Richardson. You don't think OSU fans are hoping Aller plays? Maybe. If he plays hurt. So the benching is basically because the 40-year-old quarterback behind him is better. Yes. So there are two issues at play here right now. Number one, I do think that the Indianapolis Colts are an idiot. They are idiots. They've been continuing to try to do this whole win now thing, and it's so dumb. They tried it with Carson Wentz. They tried it with Phillip Rivers. They tried it with Matt Ryan. Now they are possibly hurting the development of their young quarterback who needs development by now going to Joe Flacco, who gives them more, who gives them more of a chance to win now. That I agree with you. I think is dumb. I think that they should not bench him for Joe Flacco in the hopes of winning. I think it's stupid. But I also think that Anthony Richardson currently is not good enough to be a starter in the NFL either. Josh Allen was horrible year 1 and year 2. So that's another issue that people keep bringing up. If Josh Allen never did what he did, nobody would be talking about Anthony Richardson. Nobody would be talking about him. Although I did have Josh Allen as he was a redraft steal of mine in his year 3, which was really fun. But yes, Josh Allen had a monumental jump from year 2 to year 3. He also had a big jump from year 1 to year 2, though. Like he threw almost 60% of his completions for Josh Allen. Threw over 3,000 yards. His touchdowns doubled. His interceptions went down. So it's not like there wasn't an improvement from Josh Allen from year 1 to year 2. And we haven't seen that improvement from Anthony Richardson from year 1 to year 2. And then he got Stephon Diggs, and then he went up from there. That's the other thing too, is that Josh Allen was terrible when his top receivers were John Brown and Cole Beasley. And he still had Dawson Knox on the team. Robert Foster. Like Richardson right now has Michael Pittman, who's been a multi-1,000-yard receiver so far. Josh Downs has shown that he's clearly very, very good in the NFL. He has a very good run game in Jonathan Taylor, who's also a really good receiver out of the backfield. I get that maybe the weapons aren't the most ideal. Like I think it would be fun if they had a really good tight end, or it could be fun if they have a better wide receiver 3, or at least somebody that's able to be more productive than Alec Pierce. That's just like a deep threat. But yeah, like if Josh Allen was never a thing, nobody would be talking about Anthony Richardson positively. Christian, yeah, Allen is the outlier in the NFL tries to copy it because you don't chase. outliers. I also do agree with this. He needs actual in-game reps. I'm not saying that he will end up being good, but with what they knew when they drafted him, they needed to be more patient. I do agree with that. There's so many different layers to this that I think the Colts are idiots. I also think Anthony Richardson um, isn't good enough to be playing in the NFL right now. But I also don't think that we should be expecting him to turn into Josh Allen. He played 2 games in year 1. Yeah, I get that, but that's an injury thing. But like that's a microscopic view of his entire career is that he just doesn't have experience. He doesn't have experience at all. Even in college, like I saw like Carson Beck and Shedeur Sanders have started more games in college than Richardson has in college in the NFL. So, um, I definitely think that there are things that he can learn in practice to be better. I definitely think that there are things that he can learn only while playing in the NFL and only in playing games. But I think it's just, I think that there's too many layers to the Anthony Richardson thing that I think number one is that Indianapolis is dumb for trying to continue to win. That's number one. John, are we okay with sending a late 26 first for James Cook? I would send a late 26 first for James Cook. Wyatt just got Mixon for a late second and third. That's phenomenal. I mean, that's way better than sending away a mid first for sure. Oh, there are so many other questions up here that I totally missed. Wyatt, 12-team Superflex rebuild. Would you move the 2.03 for Rashee Rice? Done instantly. Don't even need to ask me. Go get Rashee Rice. That is so. I would still pay first round picks for Rashee Rice. So go get Rashee Rice for anything less than a first. How do you feel about Evan Ingram and Brian Robinson Jr. for Jalen Waddle and a 25 fourth? The Ingram side is the contender for the contender. I think that this is a great way to sell off of Jalen Waddle if you are competing. I don't know if I would do this in the other way. I think if you're rebuilding, I think it makes sense just to go get Waddle. I think I would like something back more than a fourth. So I would take the Ingram and Brian Robinson side on this one. But I'd like it from both sides. Again, I think I just wish that the fourth was something a little bit better. Also with Deontay traded, who is the wide receiver 1? I think Zay Flowers is still the one, especially for the next few weeks. And then who would you drop Worthy, D Hop, Coleman, Singletary for one of the Panthers wide receivers? Yes, I would drop Singletary. And my order if you're just looking at strictly for production for the next 7 or 8 weeks, it would go Thielen, Leggett, Coker would be my 3 in that order. And I would drop Singletary for every single one of them. Where Brees Hall, DJ Moore, Braylon for 3 firsts, a 25 second, and Jalen McMillan. Genji, what are you doing, man? I think I want the pick side of this one. I think 3 firsts is a little too much for Brees Hall and DJ Moore. And you also get a second, and you also get Jalen McMillan. Like McMillan over Braylon. 3 firsts and a second for Brees and DJ Moore. Yeah, I want the pick side on this one, Genji. Here's all the Anthony Richardson talk. Ow. Appreciate you, Dane. Sorry, this was like mixed in with all the Anthony Richardson stuff, but appreciate you, my man. That's why I tried very hard to make sure that I give the appropriate context and answer to all questions. So much Anthony Richardson. I do agree with this as well. Here we go. A question. Can I trade away Marvin Harrison Jr. for BTJ plus Tank Dell and Dynasty? Yes, I would take Brian Thomas Jr. and Tank Dell for this one. I don't think that Tank Dell is the piece that fits between BTJ and Marv. So yeah, I'll take BTJ and Tank on this one. As a rebuilding team, would you trade Downs for Ayuk? Oh, no, I don't think I would. The reason being is that I think that Josh Downs is going to have a really strong end of season that you can probably get a better wide receiver than Brandon Ayuk in a few weeks, or get more attached with Brandon Ayuk in a few weeks. So and worst case scenario, Josh Downs is just completely average. I think that both of these guys are pretty equally valued heading into next season. That I don't think it's bad to have held on to Josh Downs for an injured Brandon Ayuk. But there's a lot more upside with Josh Downs that his value rises because his production increases with Joe Flacco, to where I would hold on to Josh Downs and try to see if you could sell him for Ayuk plus or a better wide receiver than Ayuk. Hey, Genji, calm down here. We don't appreciate the Josh Downs slander, my man. Don't matter that he's 5'8". Trying to contend in 12-team Superflex. Why is this bubble so long? Traded JJ McCarthy in a second for A-Rich, Flacco, Hopkins last week before the benching. Thoughts? I think I'd rather just have JJ McCarthy. I would take McCarthy over the Colts quarterbacks, and I would take a second over DeAndre Hopkins. I think I'd rather would have just had McCarthy then. Even if you're trying to contend, I get it. But I think you just gave up a little bit too much. Even Genji prefers JJ McCarthy, and he's been in here raving about how good Anthony Richardson is. Wyatt traded Brees for London, Cook, Aaron Jones. Loving this deal more and more each week. That is a really, really strong deal. Fantastic. I mean, the difference between Brees and Cook is pretty minimal from a production standpoint. But then you get London and Aaron Jones. Whew. Well done, Wyatt. Well done. John's got to go to another meeting. Have a blessed weekend, everyone, and let's go Penn State. Boom, 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 boom. They were playing the, I call it the Penn State song, but they were playing it during the Jets game last night, and I sang, we are Penn State. It's the one that like every stadium plays, but I just attach it to being the Penn State song. Is oh, you know that one. Every stadium plays it, so it's not the Penn State song, but it is to me. Christian's asking, where's the best place to find new Dynasty leagues? I check DLF Discord sometimes, but they seem to go fast, hoping to join another one this offseason. DLF Discord for sure. I think BDGE's Discord has Dynasty League formations in there too. The DLF forum, maybe. Safeleagues.com, I would promote for sure if you're looking for kind of just like an online platform. You have to play on MFL on there, I think. I don't know if they do sleeper leagues on Safe Leagues. Maybe they do. There won't be any openings until the offseason, though. But if that's what you're looking for, that's fine. But safeleagues.com. They do everything online. Scott Fish is like the big wig manager of all this thing. So all the payments go through League Safe. So it's all safe and secure. If you're looking for kind of an alt platform, FFPC is a good platform too. You could just go on there and just join a league essentially. They are higher buy-ins though, because it's a little bit more like high stakes. I think the minimum buy-in for those leagues are like $100. Then you can go up to like $5,000 buy-ins or something crazy. RSO is fun. Reality Sports Online. I think you can just go and find a league on there too. That one is a salary cap and contract platform. That one's really fun, but you can go online and just find leagues on there. There was another one that I was trying to think of. I can't remember. DLF Discord, DLF Forum, BDG Discord, safeleagues.com in the off season would be the places to go. It is the contracts one is fun because at least with RSO specifically, a lot of people have different variations of contracts, and salary cap and whatnot. But in RSO, your salary cap matches whatever the NFL salary cap is. So it increases, and you have, I think, I don't even know what it is this year, like 253.9 million is what our salary cap is. I'm in a league in one of those, and it is really really fun. You do a free agent auction every year. The rookie draft, the contracts are given based on what slot you pick the players in, and it decreases as the draft goes on. You can do franchise tags, you can do extensions, you can do all that kind of stuff. So that's a fun one. That it is dynasty, but it also is not, because it takes some redrafty kind of things too, and player values change wildly based on their contracts and stuff. So it is fun. That's another fun. The DLF forum is, I don't know if I know the URL off the dome. Found it. Forum.dynastyleaguefootball.com. Genji started playing fantasy basketball this season. And it's pretty fun. The only issue I have, I think, with fantasy basketball, do you play in a league where you set your lineups weekly, and then that's just how it is, or do you set your lineup every single day? Because I tried playing fantasy baseball, and it was a set your lineup every day kind of thing, and I'm like, bro, this, by the time we got to like June, I was done. I was like, the daily lineup thing was dragged me down. But yours is daily. Tell me, it's a 7-day matchup versus. Oh, okay. But you set your lineup daily, so then you can bench players that don't have a game that night. Nice. Tell me how great it is when we hit like January and February. I'd be interested to see what it's like to set your lineup every day, because that's what dragged me down from fantasy baseball. Wyatt, it is really fun for sure. Salary cap leagues. Ayo, to go back up to the question. Sorry, man. Got sidetracked again. Would you trade Goff and JMO for Hurts as a contender in Superflex? Absolutely. Give me Jalen Hurts in that one. That's a pretty easy deal. Yep. And you move off of Jameson Williams. Oh, Dynasty Nerds Facebook group. That's cool. I don't even consider Facebook to be like a social media platform for fantasy football, but there's definitely big time pages on there too. So yeah, Nerds Facebook group. Nice. There's definitely other dynasty and fantasy football groups on there too that you could probably find. Sorry if I missed this, but did you answer my question if getting Downs and Bucky was enough for Olave? Oh, I might have missed it. My bad, Vince. Olave feels undervalued still, and Downs feels undervalued. I think it's enough. Yes. To the point where, yes, I think I would trade Chris Olave for Downs and Bucky. I do think that Downs is undervalued right now because his production is going to spike with Flacco. I think Olave is undervalued right now too, a little bit, because I think he's going to do well without Rashid Shaheed whenever Derek Carr comes back too, just be a pure target monster. Both these guys I think are going to be target monsters, but you also then get Bucky Irving. So I think it makes sense to get Bucky. I think that's a good plus in between Olave and Downs. So yeah, I think if you can squeak out a little bit more, awesome. But Downs and Bucky, I think, is enough. It's been 2 slow weeks for Breece. No, I mean, I love Breece Hall. I just don't know if I would pay 2 firsts for Breece. That's just like I don't know if I would pay 2 firsts for Gibbs or Bijan. That's just like I probably wouldn't do that for any running back. How's MFL? Oh, well, depends on who you ask. As a person who has gotten used to the MFL UI, I like it. It's a lot more customizable in terms of a rules and settings. But if you just want like a normal dynasty league, Sleeper is probably definitely the way to go. MFL does and does not have an app. I say does in the sense that they have like this like third party app developer person that made an app for it that works off of the API, but it's kind of clunky and janky, and I don't personally use it, so I just get on Safari on my phone. But I've gotten used to it, and I think it's fine. But you probably wouldn't like it. Not to say that I don't like. If you're already used to Sleeper or anything else, you probably wouldn't like MFL. I've been playing on MFL since like 2017, so I'm used to it. That's why. In a different league, I have Brees, Wilson, and Adams. It's risky but super fun when things click. How scary is the matchup in Buffalo Championship Weekend? A 6-3 Blizzard game would be a disaster. This reminds somebody else dropped a comment on a video saying that they already had Lamar, Henry, and Flowers, and then they also had Deontay. So now that Deontay's on the Ravens, they're very heavily invested in the Ravens, which has been fun. As I'd imagine, it would be fun having Brees, Wilson, and Adams too. But they said that they anticipated, because the Ravens play the Steelers in week 16. So they're like, they already envisioned the 6-3 divisional game that might also be a blizzard, but also the Steelers defense is really good. And that's what knocks them out of the playoffs. So that's what this reminded me of from a comment from like yesterday. The good news, I think, for Buffalo, for that Buffalo game, is that their Buffalo run defense is really bad. So hopefully Breece Hall does really well. Their cornerbacks are pretty good. Their exterior defense is pretty good against Wilson and Adams, but I also don't know if that necessarily matters. Last night's game definitely gave me a lot more confidence in how both of them can work with Aaron Rodgers. So I feel like I'm not scared in the sense that I think it would be a 6-3 game. That's very much a possibility, but I feel more confident that game would be like 30-23, and all three of those guys do well. And you're looking good from that. So I think I would just continue having fun with all of them whenever they click, and just hoping that Buffalo game is a click game. Have you done any 2025 scouting yet? Which running backs do you like? So there is Ashton Genty, and then there is everybody else. I really haven't started my scouting for next year yet. I probably will once we get into later November, definitely once we get into December. Like when college football regular season is done, and then we just kind of have bowl games. I gotta sneeze, it's coming. That's typically whenever I start my analytical scouting, and then that kind of directs where my film scouting starts to go. So I've turned into somewhat of a film guy over the past year-ish. Team analytics all the way, but film is definitely very contextual. But Genji already mentioned it, but this class does suck from a running back standpoint, because it literally is Ashton Genty and then everybody else. I really wanted Nick Singleton to do more. Him and Katron just continue to eat into each other, just like Travion and Judkins eat into each other. Rocket Sanders has had a couple nice games. Ollie Gordon is kind of meh. Devin Neal is fun. Devin Neal might honestly end up being like my RB2 in the class, and he's like 5'9", 190 pounds. So he was like a top 3 or 4 guy for me in last year's class, but then he decided to stay. So I think the running backs might be, they're going to be very, very hit or miss. And honestly, more of them are probably going to be miss. Omarion Hampton might be a guy that he's already been, I think, identified as an underrated sleeper. I bet you he crawls into the top 10 in rookie drafts when it's all said and done. Jeremy, Dynasty team with a 2-6 record. Normally I would trade producing old assets, but the winner of the toilet bowl gets the 101. I hate that rule. Get rid of that rule. Should I trade or keep and try to win toilet bowl? I would try to win the toilet bowl if that's what it takes to win the 1.01. Now, of course, I think there are some win now assets that you probably should definitely get rid of. Like if you have Austin Eckler or DeAndre Hopkins, or trying to think of who, and Tyler Lockett, if you can get rid of him. Any like the old guys that are maybe on even producing right now too. I feel like I would just get rid of them. But everybody else, like if you just have kind of like older, just plain older guys that are going to lose a little bit of value, but maybe also they're still going to have value next year and they're still going to produce next year. I probably wouldn't worry about it as much if the way to get the 101 is by winning the toilet bowl. So I'd probably try to just go win the toilet bowl. Dude, Wemby is an absolute cheat code. When did you draft him? Like he was your first round pick, right? He's an absolute freak. It's so much fun that we have a guy like Victor Wembanyama in the NBA. Start 3 for Blue: Hill, Puka, Cup, Neighbors, St. Brown. What the heck? If Puka plays, do I start? If he doesn't, what 3 do you pick? I'm going to anticipate that Puka does not play. I think I would play St. Brown, Cup, and Tyreek is expected to play. Let's move over to the wide receiver spot for Paulson to see if he has any tiebreaker insight. Tyreek is so. Paulson has the receivers. Malik Neighbors is wide receiver 6. Amon-Ra is wide receiver 7. Cup is wide receiver 8. Tyreek is wide receiver 9. It's a 6, 7, 8, 9 right there. Puka is wide receiver 19. I feel like some of that is because of the injury question. You have to start. You can only start 3. I guess from this, Tyreek is the guy to sit if they're playing against Buffalo. He does have the worst matchup of the 3. Cooper Cup will probably do well, especially if Puka goes out. Neighbors plays Washington. Amon-Ra might play. He might get Jaired. He might not get Jaired. I think I would just play Neighbors, Amon-Ra, and Cup, and see how we go about it. So I guess I'm sitting Puka and Tyreek. Puka might be the easy one to sit because he's probably not going to play. Would you give up DJ Moore in a third for Pickens? Yes, I will take George Pickens. Am I insane for waiting to trade May 25 first, which looks like it would be late at 25, wanting to trade May? 25 late first, 26 first for Bowers and Leggett. Yeah. Well, because you say tight end premium, how much premium? I think that's the question. I still think I moved my head all the way to a 2 PPR tight end premium, so an extra point per reception for tight ends, and I still think that this is too much. Okay, so in a 1.5, that's like barely a premium in my opinion. So I'm definitely taking May and the 2 firsts. If you could just remove Leggett, May, and turn one of the first into a second, and you just paid a first and second for Bowers, that's probably not going to get done. Would I pay 2 firsts for Brock Bowers? Probably. I'd pay 2 firsts for Brock Bowers. So get rid of May and Leggett and see if that gets the deal done. 12-team Dynasty, inbox offer of McBride, Ayuk in a second, or Hawk a first and a second. I want McBride, Ayuk in the second. The seconds effectively cancel out. It's nice that on the McBride side that you get a 1 year earlier second. I want McBride over Hawk, and Ayuk for a first, I think makes sense. So I want the McBride side on this one. Logan, hey, Addison, happy Friday. Happy Friday to you. I need to start 2, 1 tight end and 1 flex. Oh, my goodness. McBride, Kelsey, Otten, Marvin, Ladd. Oh. Let's see what Paulson says. So my answer initially is McBride and Otten. I'll flex the tight end. So McBride is flex 42. Otten is flex 54. Kelsey is flex 43, so he's right next to McBride. Marv is flex 64, so he's last on the list so far. Ladd is flex 57. Okay, so Paulson would say McBride and Kelsey, but Otten is not far behind. And Kansas City has been absolutely awful against tight ends this year. I think I would play McBride and Otten. I don't mind McBride and Kelsey, but I think you're starting 2 of those 3 tight ends. And for me, I think I'm going McBride and Otten. Johnson from Iowa is being undervalued. Guy's second to Genty. Hold on. Caleb Johnson. Ooh. Dang, I didn't know he was doing all that. 1,100 yards and 16 touchdowns already, plus another 100 and a touchdown on through the air. He's a little bit more receiving, and I'll be in. 6 foot, 225. I like it. I like it. See, this is where like my lack of NCAA knowledge comes in, that I just had to like look up who Caleb Johnson was. But once I get all the analytics, we'll dive into that pretty easily. So good luck, Wyatt. I'm gonna look out for him. What is BTJ's ceiling? I mean, his true ceiling is legitimately like top 5. He has, I think his ceiling is just like a perennial wide receiver 1, so long as Lawrence is just kind of there. If he were to ever get any quarterback better than Trevor Lawrence, or an offense that was better than what it is right now in Jacksonville, he truly has a top 5 ceiling. I think he's like that good. So, sorry, not really much more, I think, to add on that. But that's just kind of where we're at. Sit Puka regardless, even if he plays, or bench both and start Tyreek. I would still sit Puka. That knee injury is kind of worrisome, that if it already popped up and it's kind of a re-aggravation, I would hate for you to start Puka and then he hurts it in game, and then you get maybe like, it happens in like the first quarter, he has 1 catch for 10 yards and you get 2 points, and then he's out for the rest of the game. So yeah, I would sit Puka regardless, even if he plays. Ryan Reese. Reese. Happy Friday, my man. 6-2 and second in points 4. Looking to deal Jacobs and Deontay Johnson. Any running back targets you think I should go after for those 2? Your running backs are Gibbs, Achane, and Mason. Ooh. Would you be able to get into the Kenneth Walker, Jonathan Taylor range with those 2? Jacobs has been doing well over the past couple of weeks, though. That I just don't. Jacobs and Deontay Johnson. I think I would like Kenneth Walker. Kenneth Walker or Kyron Williams would be like my number 1 and number 2 to go up and get. Don't know if Deontay Johnson is going to be the piece that fits it in between there, though. JT or James Cook, I think, would be fine, because then you're also trading down in terms of age. You're aging down with those 2 from Jacobs. So I think yeah. Love Kyron, love Kenneth Walker. Would also do it for JT and James Cook. Those are the only 4 I think that would work. Lab McConkey or Chase Brown at the flex. I think I'll go with Chase Brown on this one. Man, that's a good question. McConkey is flex 57. Chase Brown is flex not 5. Flex 30. Yeah, against the Raiders. Chase Brown has been having that backfield more and more to himself every single week. So, yeah, I lean the touch floor of Chase Brown, and he has a better matchup. So, yep, Chase Brown. Stafford or Love if he plays. I would play Love if he plays. Stafford is a very good one, though, if he doesn't. And then also need 2 between Tillman, McConkey, Hunt, or Ridley. I'd go with Hunt and Ridley on that one. So Love, Hunt, Ridley. Stafford, I think, is a good play. But if Love plays, I'd play him. Just traded Jefferson, Brees, and Jameis for Lamar, Henry, and Evans in redraft. Superflex. Oh, interesting. Superflex redraft. Other quarterback is Daniels. Other running backs are Pollard, Brooks. Nice. Yeah, getting Lamar, fantastic. Moving from Brees to Henry, you win there. You essentially trade Jefferson for Lamar and then Jameis. Yeah. I think it's fair on both sides, honestly. I think I like the Lamar side because you're getting the much better quarterback in a Superflex league. Hurts that you had to trade away Justin Jefferson for it, but yeah, give me Lamar. I feel a sneeze coming. It's been in the back of my head for like 5 minutes. That was some Lawrence shade right there. He just needs to put it all together. I agree. I like Trevor Lawrence, but there it was. Ah, God, I'd been feeling that sneeze in my head for like 5 minutes. I agree. He just needs to put it all together. Last one, played Wilson and Adams already. Need one between JSN Worthy or Elijah Moore. I'll go with Elijah Moore on that one. I expect DK to play, but even if DK doesn't play, I think I still want Elijah Moore based on what he did last week with Jameis. And I think he has the lowest probability to just not put up a dud. I think Worthy could put up a dud. He could just have like 2 catches for 18 yards and that's it. And JSN, I think, could definitely lay a dud if he is the wide receiver 3 on that team, or if they just run down LA's throats and it's just a Kenneth Walker game. So you probably have a big head start from having Wilson and Adams already. So I think Elijah Moore in a full PPR with an extra point per first downs, I think I would just trust in Elijah Moore just not killing you. Should I trade Puka and Jacobs for Kamara? Oh boy. So this is kind of getting into the Puka knee injury thing. If Puka is done for the year, that is scary. I still don't. I think I'd rather just hold on to Puka and Jacobs still. I don't know how much of an upgrade Kamara is over Jacobs, honestly, to the fact that if Puka's injury is really not serious and he is back in maybe a couple weeks and is a playoff guy for you, that I'd rather just have Puka then. So I think I'd hold on to Puka and Jacobs. He has all 3 of them. Perfect. So I would go. Walker is definitely my number 1. Cook or JT, I feel like the answer there is if he has a price difference, if he needs more for one of them, the other one is a little bit cheaper than the other. I don't really have a preference between the two. Cook is a little bit more healthy, so maybe you lean towards James Cook, or has had less of an injury history. JT's already missed time this year, but Walker is for sure the number 1. I would pay a little bit more for Walker than I would for JT and Cook. Are you more in on James Cook? Because I remember you saying that you were hesitant on him. I still am hesitant on him. I am definitely in a little bit more, but I am still hesitant on him. So both of these things are still true. He's definitely still a top 10 dynasty running back. I think just out of necessity, he kind of has to be. He's been producing really well over the past couple of weeks too, but it feels so weird with Cook, because it's like 1 week he's the entire offense, and 1 week he's not part of the offense, and then 1 week he is the entire offense, then he's kind of the offense, and then it's just I can't nail down what James Cook actually is. So I am more into him, but I am still hesitant about him. So yes to both. Yeah, I get that. Could you try for, man, I don't know. Like, I would love to go get like Saquon or Henry or, like that kind of a hammer at the position for the rest of the season. Walker maybe is another good one too. Achane could be an interesting one. Achane's production with Tua has been insane this year. So, but I think Jacobs is also still just a very solid RB2. What's the price for a top 5 quarterback or top 5 wide receiver in 2025 first round picks only? 3 firsts minimum. If not, maybe 4. But 3 minimum. Paul, full PPR start 1, Demario Douglas, Mostert, or Hawkinson. I will go with, oh boy, tough spot to be in, Paul. Demario is flex 128. Mostert is flex 101. The Bills' run defense is really bad. Hawkinson is flex 88. Paulson would say TJ Hawkinson. If you don't want to play Hawk in his first week back, I think Mostert is also a fine start. He has touchdown upside. But Paulson would say Hawkinson. I'm on board with it too. I just get dicey about playing a guy on his first week back from injury, then I might lean towards Mostert. It's definitely between those two, though. I do agree with Paulson on that. I don't know if I gave you any actual conviction on an answer, but Paulson would say Hawkinson. I like the answer too. Trade Kamara for Pacheco and Cup in redraft. Have Drake London, Chubb, Hunt. I don't want Pacheco. I like Cup. I think Kamara for Cup makes sense. I just don't want Pacheco back because I just don't think that Pacheco is going to give you anything of value for the remainder of the year from a production standpoint. I don't know what else he has other than Pacheco, but I like it to go get to Cup, but I just don't think Pacheco is going to do anything for you. Traded Otten, Bigsby, and ETN for Kincaid, Dell, and Kenneth Walker. Wow. Yeah, I want the Kenneth Walker side on that one. I feel like that's a pretty easy. And I'm the person that answers on 4 for 4 as well. And it's funny that notification just came up too. So I will answer on both here and on the 4 for 4 side. The Kenneth Walker side for sure. So just let it ride with my team and switch wide receivers depending on matchups. Yeah, because I think you really need to upgrade at the running back position. Or maybe if you could upgrade multiple of your wide receivers to then move up at the wide receiver spot. Can you do a 2-for-1 at wide receiver to really get another stud there and lessen your decisions every week there? I just think I like where your head's at. I like the idea. I just don't know if the value or the players are the right guys to do it with Jacobs and Puka and Kamara, or I think you need somebody better than Kamara to make that upgrade. Or maybe you need somebody lesser than Puka to go over to Kamara. Sean McVay said he wouldn't bet against the receiver playing on Sunday. Oh, man. I don't trust that at all. But yeah, maybe a 2-for-1 of the wide receiver position is something that you might be more interested or more apt to be able to do, Blue. Would you drop Deontay for D-Hop since I already have Lamar and Henry, or offer Deontay or Kmet for Chase Brown to get another running back? I would. I want to drop Deontay I would trade Deontay for Chase Brown. I would like to do that. If you can do that, that would be number 1 on my list. Number 2 would be dropping Deontay for DeAndre Hopkins. I don't think you need Kmet. I think you're just fine with Ferguson. So I would try to trade Deontay for Chase Brown. And then drop Deontay for D-Hop if you can't get Chase Brown. Price check on acquiring DK, mid 25 first. I would definitely take DK over a 25 first. I would do it for a first and second. But if you can get it done for just one random mid-ish 25 first, absolutely on board with that. I love that. All right. We've gotten to the end of the questions at 2:00. Boom, boom, boom. Ferger Kraft this week. I lean Ferguson because I'm unsure if Love is going to play. Paulson also has Ferguson ranked higher as well. They're separated by 1.2 PPR points. So he has Ferguson ranked higher too. I'd go Ferguson. No, I don't think you're crazy. I think going over to D-Hop is a fine. I mean, there's more potential upside there, I think, with him being the Rashee Rice or the Juju, that role in the offense for the remainder of the year. Tillman, Ladd, and Waddle in your flex. I'll go with Waddle on this one. Just traded a 25 mid first and Romeo Dobbs. That's perfect. That's essentially a first and second. I think that's better than a first and second. I think I would take a second over Romeo Dobbs. But that's perfect. A first and something ish for DK. Boom. Who's a good waiver wire ad for Diggs? Oh man, I could name so many different people. Who's the top available in your league? Like who are you trying to decide between? Then we can. we can nail down one. All right. I'm waiting on FFA clan, but I think this will. How well do you think Evans does whenever he comes back? Hopefully, week 12. I think he just goes right back into being a weekly wide receiver 1, more or less, or top 15 guy. The hamstring injuries, we saw AJ Brown had a hamstring injury earlier in the year, came back magnificent. I expect more of the same for Nico Collins whenever he comes back. I expect the same thing with Mike Evans. So I think that he's going to come back and he's going to be fantastic for the end of the year. Jennifer, Tracy or Chubb in flex redraft? Assuming that Tyron Tracy plays, I would play Tracy. It seems like he's developing well into playing this week, so I would play Tracy if he's active. Dynasty half PPR Superflex Kate Otten for a mid to late 25 second. If you are competing, I would rather have Otten for now. But if you are not competing, I think this is fine to take the second. So depends on where your team's at. Cedric Tillman, drop Diggs for Tillman, especially if you don't need to play him this week. So Sutton is another good add too. It's between Sutton and Tillman for me, but I think Tillman has more upside. Any predictions on the next ex-franchise QB to have a resurgence? Good question. The picks right now are basically like Fields, maybe Anthony Richardson, maybe Bryce Young. Trying to think of who else. Sam Howell would be a fun name. I wish it was Sam Howell. Low key, it might be Jameis. The answer might honestly be Jameis based on if he can continue doing what he's doing right now. But I think, yeah, it's probably. I don't know if I think a resurgence is too strong of a word. I think Justin Fields has a good chance of being valuable again as a starter the soonest out of everybody I named, basically. But Jameis might be the guy that returns and comes back into being like a top 20 dynasty quarterback asset. Yep. Did you drop your roster? Did I miss where your roster was? Like, do you have other people other than Tyreek, Kupp, and Neighbors and St. Brown? Still at it. Hardest working fantasy content creator out there. We're almost done. People still have questions. I have Kittle and I think I can compete, but kind of want odd ender and buy in a potential backup. Yeah, if you're competing, I'm fine keeping Kate Otten over the second. So I'm cool with that. I think you can still get a second for Otten in a couple of weeks before Evans comes back. I would start Tyreek Hill this week over Devonta Smith. Yeah, absolutely. Lamar and Daniel's fantastic. And you also got Derrick Henry. Wonderful. Darnold could end up getting a Baker type of deal. Just depends where. Maybe the Colts is interesting. Pittsburgh, somewhere like that. I hope for Darnold's sake that he stays in Minnesota. I know that's going to suck for JJ McCarthy, but I think that Darnold's best case scenario is to stay in Minnesota. I don't know if I'd like him in Pittsburgh. Traded Deontay and Darnell Mooney for ETN and Kirk. Oh, interesting. I feel like I like both sides of this just because they're both just kind of have upside on everything. So, yeah, I think it's fine. I think both sides are fine. Thought for a second my shirt was inside out. I have Anthony Richardson in my keeper league with a 14th round tag. Is he worth holding, or am I burning a roster spot? He's probably burning a roster spot, especially if this is a one quarterback league. You're probably just burning a spot. Do you do dynasty team reviews? I did that one a couple weeks ago. I'm working on the second one for another person. I'm still trying to figure out what the best way to do these is, because I'm trying to be pretty judicious about which teams I do. but because I want to make it worth your guys' while for like an actual video. Um, but I also want to make sure that I'm, mindful of my time personally as well. So I will say possibly. I've still been trying to figure out the best way to do that though. The best way to take on which rosters that I do. So maybe it might be more of an off-season thing that I get into because it might be hard for me to kind of dig into that as the season kind of wraps up and I'm doing content over at 4for4 and in season's really wild. Aloha Panda. Hey Addison, sorry I'm late. No worries, my man. You got in here. Should I drop Wilson for Parker Washington or Raheem Jarrett in a full PPR dynasty league? Just looking for someone I can sell later for a third. Honestly, I think that I'd rather have Emmanuel Wilson. If Jacobs were to get hurt, I think you can then trade Wilson for a third. Parker Washington, I think, would be the only other interesting name because Christian Kirk is inactive for the remainder of the year. Do you have anybody else that you could drop instead of Wilson for Washington? I don't think you can get a third for Jarrett, so I don't know if I'd pick him up for that. Parker Washington is interesting, though, but I think I'd rather just keep Wilson for now. Wow, this is a phenomenal team. Could you trade one of your wide receivers and one of your tight ends? Because I think Bowers and Njoku are both going to be phenomenal for the rest of the year. So if you can upgrade off of Puka to move up to get like Lamb or Jefferson or somebody like that, and you go Puka and Bowers for one of those guys, or Puka and Njoku for one of those guys, that might be the play. Yeah. Wow. You have such a good team, dude. And there might be something to be said about maybe you just don't make any changes whatsoever, and you prevent the other teams in your league from having a shot at having any of these guys. There is, I think, there is some merit to a keep away strategy here, to where if you have those guys on your bench, they're not being used against you. So that could be. That could be something because I don't think that you're ever going to really make a wrong decision. Maybe you're going to make less ideal decisions at wide receiver, but I don't think any of your wide receivers are really going to kill you to where you're making like wrong decisions every week. Because this is a championship level team. So you might just make the championship and not have to do anything, especially if you're playing the keep away strategy from everybody else. I could maybe drop Shipley, but I feel like the Chris Brooks thing is muddying the waters for Wilson to be the clear takeover for Jacobs. Yeah, that's yeah. If you want to drop Wilson for Parker Washington, I'm not opposed to that. I would rather have Shipley than Emmanuel Wilson. So I think that if Wilson really is the worst guy on your roster to then drop for Washington, and you want to pick up Parker Washington, maybe you could. Can you drop Wilson for Parker Washington? Immediately flip Washington for a third. Just send an offer of him to everybody in your league for a third round pick, or Washington and a fourth for a third. And then as soon as you sell me, then just pick up Wilson again. That could be the play. If you think you're able to do that. Oh. Then maybe you just hold on to Wilson for now then. If Washington has made it through your waivers this week already, it might just be better just to let him be on waivers again until next week and see what happens. Because I will say, since we're this close to the weekend, if Jacobs or Saquon were to get hurt, every bit of wood knocking in my vicinity, that would skyrocket the value of both of these handcuffs dramatically. There is nothing more that Parker Washington can do outside of having a Cedric Tillman level game that his value would increase dramatically over this weekend. So it might just be more beneficial to hold on to the handcuffs because their values could spike a lot than Washington. Yeah, definitely. Everybody should be knocking on wood after what I just said. T. Higgins and Zach Moss are officially doubtful. Yikes. Would you trade away a mid to late 25-second and Kendra Miller for DeAndre Swift? I would do it for Swift. I think that's fine. Swift's rest of season schedule in like a week or two gets really, really rough, but he is a workhorse running back, and that offense does appear to be getting better. So I think this is a good deal for DeAndre Swift. I don't think it's too late. I think it's solid. Can't even get a third from Addison. Oof. Then yeah, maybe it is just best just to not pick up Parker Washington and keep the other running backs then. All right. Went for like 10 extra minutes there, so we're all good. But now this is where we will call it. So I appreciate everybody for hanging out for the past 2 hours and 15 minutes. Thank you guys so much. This is definitely the highlight of my week, so I'm very thankful and happy that a lot of you guys say that it's also the highlight of your weeks too. Very appreciative of that. So if I did not ask or did not answer anybody's questions, or if you have any other follow-up questions or anything like that, drop them into the comments of this video and in the replay, just like it's a normal YouTube comment or any other videos. I answer all the comments on YouTube, so we can discuss outside of this video as well. So yeah, appreciate everybody. We'll be back again next week, same time, 12 p.m. Eastern time for week 10's AMA and ETN and Njoku for B-Rob. I will take Brian Robinson on that one. Yep. Yeah, move off of ETN and go get B-Rob. Love that one. Upgraded your roster even more. All right. But yeah, appreciate everybody for hanging out. Hopefully the rest of your Friday is fantastic. Hopefully you guys have a fantastic weekend. If you watch college football, NFL, hopefully your teams win. Hopefully your fantasy teams all win or they lose if you want them to lose if you're rebuilding in Dynasty. Go Penn State. Beat Ohio State. We are all cheering for Penn State this weekend. Make sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button as well too. Thank you so much, Blue. Thank you to everybody else. And we'll catch y'all next week again. Later, guys.